Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we'll be talking about the game of Mr. Tanvir Gillani versus Mr. Shehzad Chouhan. Mr. Shehzad Chouhan had the white pieces and Mr. Tanvir Gillani had the black pieces. Giving you a bit of a backstory about the game, this was played in the seventh round of the Kashmir Day Open Chess Championship, which was held in Lahore recently. Mr. Tanvir Gillani is a three-time national champion and is rated 2200, while Mr. Shehzad Chauhan is a well-known player in the Pakistani chess community and is rated 1800. Mr. Tanvir Girani had won all of his previous games and was on a winning streak before this game, and both of these people are tournament leaders. So it's pretty much obvious that whoever will win this game will go on to win the tournament, which is exactly what happened. So without much further ado, we'll start analyzing the game. So white begins with the move d4, d4, and black replies with g6, which is known as the modern defense. So basically, what we'll see over here is that uh, white will build up a massive center, develop all his pieces normally, whereas black will try to attack that center, undermine that center from the sides. So after g6, the move g3 was played. Both sides fianchettoed their bishops, knights come out, and castles. So we enter into this pretty typical setup with a hut pawn structure around the king side, and with these bishops will be a key factor in the long-term strategic play. So Mr. Tanvir plays knight a6, which is a bit of a weird move, considering that you usually want to develop towards the center. But okay, that this wasn't played. Maybe his plan is to push knight. The only viable plan which I can see is to push c4 in the c5 in the future to undermine the center, and after takes you have a okayish knight placed on c5. Sorry about that. So c4 was played and c5 undermining the pawn and undermining the center. Over here, d captures c5 was played, although in hindsight, I believe that the move c6 could have been better. I mean, if he ever does this, you can even, I don't know, maybe push the pawn, creating some weaknesses over here. But alas, this was not played. So d captures c5 was played in the game, and we have uh, knight captures c5, justifying knight a6, obviously. So we have bishop e3 and d6, protecting the knight. We have knight c3 fighting for the d5 square, bishop e6 again fighting for the d5 square as you usually do in these type of setups, and knight d5. Now this move is really interesting, although it does violate opening principles. It has a very interesting idea. The opening principle of force that it violated is the fact that it moved the piece twice in the opening, which you usually don't want to do. Uh, I feel as though this is a bit premature. Better would have been to continue. Uh, it's better would have been to continue with b3 and knight and sorry about that, and rook to c1. But this wasn't played, so knight d5. 10th move is knight d5. Yes. So rooks, we have rook c8, taking the semi-open c file, and bishop d4. Another very nice move by white. So what this does is it puts pressure on this knight here, threatening to double obviously, and lock out this bishop for the rest of the game, and as well as uh, it basically it centralizes another piece. So now white has two pieces in the center with the third one having influence over it as well. So all in all, I think uh, white has a very nice control over the center. So to undermine it's black's responsibility now to undermine it. So we have knight captures d5, c captures d5, and bishop d7. Now, point to be noted is that white didn't take this, black didn't take this pawn because after bishop captures bishop, this bishop was here, yeah. So bishop captures knight, bishop captures rook. So yeah, so after the what's wrong with this computer? Okay. After a series of trade, it doesn't favor white at all. So we have knight captures d5, c captures d5, and knight d7. We have bishop captures g7, king captures g7, and queen d4 check. This is a very nice position for white to be in, as he has successfully infiltrated the dark squared bishops. The dark squares, and so king g8 and rook ft1, saying that if you ever want to push this pawn becomes weak after the series of trades. So we have a5. So the point of a5 is basically saying that black would somewhere along the line want to re like repurpose his rook on b4, uh, which would be a nice accomplishment. But white then again, white can always play a3. It does weaken b2, but okay, it's a move. So we have rook a c1 taking control of the c file, semi-open c file, and bishop e8 and rook e8, trying to maybe get some sort of a pawn push in. So we have did I miss something? Did I miss something? No. So yeah, rook e8 and b3. So the point of b3 is to stop a6, a4, sorry, to stop a4, and maybe create some sort of an outpost over here for the queen. So b3, we have we have knight a6 and queen f4, threatening to infiltrate here on h6. King g7, protecting the dark squares, which is, I mean, he's protecting the dark squares with the king, which isn't a nice idea, but let's see if white can exploit this small inaccuracy. So h4, threatening to push h5, further weakening the king side. So we have exchange of rooks and knight c5, creating an outpost for the knight. So we have uh, bishop, rook, knight g5. Yeah, so knight g5 threatens to simply take over here, asking black what he's going to do with that weakness. So black defends, rook f8, and a3. Another very interesting move. I mean, it does blunder upon the engine says that this is in fact a mistake, but it's not that clear in a human game because if black does take over here, sorry about that. If black does take over here, what ends up happening is that there's a rook left with tempo, and the rook comes over here. So that's not something very nice. So knight goes back. The queen infiltrates on the dark squares with check. King goes back. Maybe f6 was a better move here, but I don't know about that because then the e6 square becomes weak in certain lines. So king g8, queen d2, making use of the dark squares as we previously discussed. Black's lack of dark squared bishop is really evident in this game. And queen b6, adding some pressure on the dark squares as well. Over here, uh, both threatening the pawn and this lining the queen with the king. After that, we have rook c3. Yeah, rook c3 is another very nice move. Nice rook left, making the last piece of the game into the towards the king side, which is again very nice piece coordination by Mr. Shehzad. And h6, pushing away the knight from the really good g5 square. Knight goes back, and king goes up. Uh, again, uh, ex- uh, protecting this weak h pawn, which does result from black trading off his dark squared bishop, which he should not have done, in my opinion. So uh, we have h5. So what obviously black cannot take over here because then the light squares become extremely weak, the dark squares are weak, and white will get a sort of a mating attack in. So Mr. Tanvir Gillani played bishop g4, which loses the game. Well, white does get a sort of a big advantage, but uh, it's really difficult to see. So over here, g captures h5 was the engine's suggestion, but practically speaking, that's not a really nice move. I wouldn't play it. This is the practical way to go. So h captures g6 and f captures g6, opening lines towards the enemy king. So over here, if black can manage to trade this knight for this bishop, he'd be doing really well, I'd say. But okay, so f capture g6 and bishop and rook e3, eyeing this weak e pawn over here, and obviously takes with check. So it's very essential for him to protect. Rook f7, and very nice move, knight h4, saying that this trade is no longer available, and he's also putting pressure on this weak g pawn. I mean, pretty much all of his pawns are pretty weak. I mean, if you see, uh, white has many, is almost all of his pieces coordinated towards the king side. Where was I? Yeah, where was I? G5. Yeah. So black really has all of his pieces coordinated towards the king side and he's all ready for an attack. Whereas this knight is out of the game, this queen's out of the game, and these pawns are extremely weak. His pawn structure is also extremely weak. So the position really does favor white. So g5 was played. The problem with g5 is that it opens up the king a bit too much, and is another blunder which might cost black the game. So we have queen c4, king g8, knight g6, threatening mate in one. So rook f6, protecting the mate, and another nice move, knight captures e7 with check, king f7, and this was the nice move, king g8. So he's sacrificing, well, not sacrificing, but making good use of the fact that this rook is pretty much undefended besides this king. So obviously, this will take over here, and we'll have a very nice mating attack. So obviously, it doesn't take rook g6, the only move which doesn't lose on the spot, and rook e7 check, sacrificing this knight for a very nice mating attack. King captures g8, and we have a couple of checks in f7 and queen h8. The queen has successfully infiltrated, and this position is really beautiful because it does really show Mr. Shehzad Chouhan's piece coordination and long-term strategy. Because you see black's pieces in this position and they're so ill coordinated, like you really do have to ask what these two pieces are doing, really out of the game for a long time. So yeah, So yeah, where were we? Yeah, King H8, I think. Yeah, King H8. So after Queen H8, we have Rook G7 because White was threatening to play Bishop E4 with tempo, so why not stop that? So Bishop E4 nonetheless, and King F6, which now leads directly into a mate in two. So yeah, King F8 was played, Rook F7 only move, and Queen captures H6 was checkmate. So Mr. Shehzad Chouhan did go on to uh, win the event, and this was a very important game in the tournament. It really did show how well Mr. Shehzad Chouhan is in chess. And yeah, so well, basically this was it. Thank you all very much. And if you guys have any more suggestions or any more instructive games, do let me know in the comment section, or many of you might have my WhatsApp number, so uh, just WhatsApp me. Yeah. Thank you.